Okay, up again. There we go. Okay, sorry, it seems to have stopped. Where are we getting all this? Our scientific points of view from, right? Our study of the natural world, physical phenomena, according to a method and so on. Besides the fact that I've got a great new syllogism, a set of syllogisms now to start really clarifying, what the hell is science anyway? These scientists are so lost. They're, got Lawrence Krauss stating philosophy is a kind of science. So I'm starting to get clear about some of the basics here. We've got to start getting clear about basic assumptions and basic disciplines and basic processes. What are we doing here? All this crossfire of opinions, and it's all, the press loves it, right? All the conflict. But in fact, to get to the truth and to deal with the real stresses, the real threats to the modern world, beginning with the basis of sustainability. We are facing a sustainability crisis, and people need to wake up. Why can't, there should be no reason why we can't fix the sustainability crisis and have a sustainable world, except for people's mindsets, people's ideologies that are basically serving the profiteers, right? It's profiteering business that is causing the sustainability crisis in the first place, and all the expectations and assumptions that they have indoctrinated enough people with to close people's minds to the basic, simple, relatively simple changes ultimately that ultimately need to be made. But they have really got people. There are impolite ways to put it. People up there, where the sun doesn't shine. But people are absorbed and wrapped into that indoctrinated box that change is apparently unimaginable. Apparently, right? It's unimaginable to start transitioning already, like the Germans with their Energiewende, right? Their transition. So, science then, as part of that, and all of it ultimately, when we're trying to use logic and talk about, oh yeah, we're being logical, we've got a logical point, prove it logically or scientifically. We have, the syllogism makes it nice. Methods and disciplines of thinking are forms of philosophy. Premise, or point one. 2, science is a discipline and method of thinking about the natural world. Right? Studying it observationally and empirically, but it's all basically, you've got to think about it. Scientists have to think about it. Point 2. Point 3, therefore, science is a form of philosophy. It's a form of empirical philosophy, a little bit more specifically, but that connects it then to the university-based environment, university-based scholarship that we look at in epistemology, and we can appropriately identify knowledge domains, paying attention to phenomena domains. That's what we're talking about. That's what we are all working with as human beings on the same page. Stephen Jay Gould was trying to kind of shoot in the dark and feel his way to that with his non-overlapping magisteria, taking terminology from the Pope of all people. Okay, hey, very respectful, got to, grant the guy, love the guy for that, for his outreach, but ultimately what we're doing, people, we would be nowhere without the universities. It's a university-based philosophical system and bunch of philosophical systems and disciplines that we're working with. Fritjof Capra is the man on this. I love to go to on this, for his work, the amazing work that he's been doing. And he's made the link to sustainability, and he's working at the connections of all these things. Gotta love the guy. So Okay, that's where we are coming from. That's where I'm coming from, and that's where I'm recommending that everybody come from. And that's the argument. That's the beginning of the argument that I'm making about that. Okay, so coming from the Cambridge University of Cambridge, Dupin. Hey, Café Dupin. Can you go wrong with me? Hey, tough to do, right? Okay, gotta love Café Dupin. The Big Bang and abiogenesis, right? So now, getting empirical, right? Science with its method, lovely, lovely, and all the experimentation, lovely, lovely. Oh, you can see it, prove it because you can see it. Their study of the natural world and their development of concepts and reducing phenomena to categories and classes of identifiable phenomena and their knowledge classification and operations and processes and so on. So the Big Bang, right? Because Edward Hubble is it? Was looking at the redshift, right? Or taking someone else's observation about the redshift and making a conclusion that the universe was expanding and accelerating away from us, right? We've got the redshifts and the blue shifts, and then ultimately we had the microwave radiation, cosmic microwave radiation discovery, right, back in the 1960s, if I'm not mistaken, that are parts of the evidence. But the redshift then being the initial observational evidence about our expanding universe, leading back to an initial point of ignition, right? Some kind of moment where everything was created out of what? Out of nothing? Perhaps nothing. And the metaphysical question then, getting into our philosophy of religion, being, well, all these issues of, that all that is something, where did it come from, right? Then having that next realm in epistemology, right? So that, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of things. So that's the Big Bang, right? The Big Bang comes from that basic evidence. It's the Big Bang hypothesis and theory, coming from that hypothesis and the logical steps there, based on that evidence, that initial inspiring evidence. Induced from, right? Induction from, we make deductions then from that evidence that we have induced from. And I believe that's altogether called abduction. Love these words, right? Love these philosophical terms, right? Okay, it has jumped down here. So we've got the Big Bang and terrestrial abiogenesis, anyway. That are one-time events that none of us have seen. So through the scientific empirical philosophy, we have various forms of evidence that we have philosophically reasoned around and induced through induction and then deduction. We have these hypotheses of the Big Bang hypothesis and abiogenesis, terrestrial abiogenesis. Right? It never happened because it never happens, right? I mentioned here then psychosomatic medicine and mind-body healing, which are forms in relationship to the resurrection, right? In terms of the resurrection type phenomenon that is a healing type of phenomenon that occurred. And so this is my first comment, and he also made a comment about Spider-Man, that God is like Spider-Man, but of course Spider-Man, and who knows, maybe he means Jesus too, it's sort of drawing on the Jesus myth, but certainly Spider-Man hasn't been spawning a movement, and that's based on spiritual teachings and associated with the culture that became Western civilization. And so that brings us into additional elements, and I guess I want to keep this kind of short. Where am I here? A few minutes. Well, so among the various comments, a guy then commented on extraordinary claims. He used this term. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, which would then deal with bring us back to the resurrection. This kind of label then normally gets me off, throws me a little bit off, has thrown me a little bit off. But anyway, ultimately today I had a big sort of aha moment and an epiphany that made sense of it in terms of all the other frameworks that I've already been building, which is that it is a rhetorical manner of expressing, it's labeling as extraordinary the resurrection, using and projecting the assumptions of science itself. And science is so prevalent that it's easy to get sucked into that kind of presumption, right? It's a presumption. It's using assumptions and projecting those assumptions as if there's no questioning them, or there is no context. And so the simple response that I came up with is extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Well, considering the only reason that that you would call Jesus' resurrection extraordinary and without evidence is if you are used to laboratory procedures, technological procedures, studying natural phenomena, and not non-natural science material, which is in the social sciences, anthropology, psychology, sociology, and so on, history, and the humanities. Well, history being part of the humanities technically, and spiritual and religious experience issues, which is then, as I started out in the introduction, introducing you to and talking about, is part of our philosophical subforms, subcategories, subdisciplines. The academic disciplines and their subdisciplines are forms of philosophy, modern philosophy, right? And so what we get into then is the quick response, which is you're calling Jesus' resurrection an extraordinary claim that requires extraordinary evidence because and saying that is extraordinarily illiterate in philosophical and basic philosophy. That is modern philosophy and modern academic disciplines. For example, right, when we study the Old Testament itself, the Bible itself, Jesus' heritage includes various prophets and resurrections. Resurrection as a phenomenon occurred before Jesus, on the one hand. Resurrection as an extension of the healing phenomenon in Jesus' own life relates to modern demonstrations of healing, including psychosomatic medicine. Since Freud, not least of all, right, in modern terms, we've got post-Freudian psychology, therapeutic psychology in particular, in which healing phenomena have been demonstrated. Freud demonstrated talk therapy, starting with a form of early hypnosis, derived from mesmerism, and abreaction for emotional reconnection, and catharsis, in which he identified the relief of symptoms. Right? And then we go into Jung, who avoided the anti-theist fallacy, and then transpersonal psychology that emerged quickly from the therapeutic psychology. And psychosomatic medicine that has a slightly different track that it also interrelates there with things like the placebo effect, right? That loving things, right? And that brings us to Harry Harlow. He's one of my favorite examples. Since love is a very unconventional term that's not really used much in standard psychology, that I've seen with like Leo Buscaglia. When it's used, it becomes a popularization then of psychology, right? With like Leo Buscaglia, John Bradshaw, for example. But Harry Harlow, in his work with baby monkeys, was trying to get the term used in analyzing and assessing the deprivation effects on baby monkeys, right? So, how are we doing? Okay. So one more.